Hey folks, thanks for checking out Reigniting Liberty. I'm Deneen Borelli and Dr. Tom Borelli is in the house bringing you the truth in black and white. So folks, guess what? Sanctuary City Backfire. That's right. Sanctuary City Backfire. What am I talking about? New York City Mayor Eric Adams, the guy with the flashy suits, and he's always partying and traveling and whatnot. Woo, woo. Well, guess what? He is declaring an illegal immigrant emergency. Those aren't his words, but he is declaring an emergency because of the influx of illegals that are flooding in to New York City under his watch. The illegal immigrant crisis is hitting New York City big time, and it's caught New York City Mayor Eric Adams with his pants down.
Those fancy, expensive pants.
Those Gucci suits, whatever they are. Well, New York City is a sanctuary city, so Adams is committed to finding housing and services for the influx of the illegals that are coming into the city. And look, sanctuary city sounds so nice, warm and fuzzy to the Democrats, right? But then there is the reality. And the reality is to provide the shelter and the services for all of these people. That's the reality. This is knocking them for a loop. So now Adams is struggling to deal with the thousands of illegal immigrants being bused to New York City from border red states. Adams isn't happy, not a happy camper at all. So New Yorkers aren't happy either. So I think folks around the country are not happy as well, especially if you live along the southern border. In fact, the Borellis, Dr. Borelli and myself, we did it again. We got some great video of New Yorkers blasting Adams for his illegal immigrant sheltering plans. And as a reminder, the Borellis, we are keeping our commitment to you that we do more than just sit and talk like many other podcasts. We are out there in the mix. Sometimes we need to tell people what we're doing because maybe, what if we go missing or something? But we're out there in the mix. We're trying to get the information to you, the people, because a lot of our media outlets are not doing their jobs. So when the opportunity arises, we hit the streets to give you the firsthand reporting with the video of events, the truth in black and white, Dr. Borelli.
Absolutely, Deneen. This is what we're doing for the benefit of our viewers and for our listeners. And in this episode of Reigniting Liberty, we're going to describe the illegal immigration crisis going on in New York City, explain why the illegal immigrant crisis exposes a fundamental flaw in Democrat thinking and in Democrat policy. And as you refer to, we're going to provide some great video of a community meeting in the Bronx.
The
Bronx, right, where I went to high school in the Bronx, where the local citizens expressed their outrage of a tent city going up in their neighborhood. Talk about unhappy campers. These people were livid, and we have the video to prove it. And probably most important is the consequence and the absolute brilliance of the political strategy by those red state governors busing up the illegal immigrants to sanctuary cities like New York City. Absolutely brilliant, and we're going to describe why it's so important that they're doing this. So as background, as Deneen mentioned, Mayor Eric Adams is not a happy camper. Watch him whine that he didn't know about the illegal immigrant surge in New York.
New Yorkers are angry. I am angry too. We have not asked for this. There was never any agreement to take on the job of supporting thousands of asylum seekers. This responsibility was simply handed to us without warning as buses began showing up. There's no playbook for this, no precedent.
In fact, Adams is so challenged, he even suggested it's time to change the city's right to shelter law. It turns out that New York is unique, only place in the country where every person in the city is guaranteed shelter or a bed. Who would think of that, right?
Didn't know
Guaranteed
that.
shelter, right? What could go wrong? What could go wrong with that? Well,
Right.
Adams is finding out what could go wrong, as well as a lot of people in New York City. Now the flood of illegal immigrants are exposing the flaws in this type of giveaway to whoever it is gets a shelter. Adams said, and this is in the New York Times, Adams said, quote, "No city official, advocate, or court ever could have contemplated dealing with such a surge of illegal migrants into a city." Typical, right? They didn't contemplate that if you guarantee to give people a bed, and there are a lot of people coming there for that reason, that there's going to be a problem. Imagine that. Imagine that. The reality is New York City's shelter system is being overwhelmed by the buses of illegal immigrants being sent by governors in those red border states. And Adams' struggle to deal with the city's sanctuary status exposes a fundamental problem with Democrat thinking and Democrat policy. We're going to get to that piece in a little bit further down in this podcast.
Well, look, they're getting a taste of their own medicine, right? The border is wide open. Those poor people along the southern border are being overrun, and our border patrol, they're being overwhelmed with their jobs, trying to keep up with the sheer number of people that are coming through, having to do humanitarian work and all kinds of other things. It's just a really, really bad situation under this administration. And of course, Eric Adams is seeking more money to pay for providing illegal immigrants housing and other services. He has declared a state of emergency over the surge of illegal immigrants.
He hit the panic button.
Yeah, he hit it, and hit it hard, and hit it quick. Yes, he did. He threw the flag, right? Well, Adams said about 17,000 have been bused to New York City and is getting daily buses carrying these individuals. The mayor issued an executive order on the emergency, and it mentions a total of 100,000 will need to be addressed by the city's shelter system. So now it's all hands on deck for New York City, and we need money too, Dr. Tom. Then there's New York City Comptroller. They said the city faces $1 billion in costs to pay for the illegal immigrants, and the cost can threaten New York City's finances. Wow, those numbers are adding up, aren't they? Again, no issue at all with the southern border previously, but now everyone stopped what they're doing because
full
now
stop.
it's the problem.
Only 17,000.
I know.
Right? Yep. I think some cities in Texas have been getting that in a week.
Yes.
And because of that, New York City is hitting the panic button. They're overwhelmed. And oh my gosh, it's going to cost us $1 billion. Well, it's going to cost somebody $1 billion.
Right.
Of course, it's all of us who are going to pay for this mess. But that's
one
why
way or
they're so
another
concerned all of a sudden.
Exactly. It's on his doorstep. And then there's the public schools aspect, Dr. Tom. Public schools have enrolled over 5,000 of these children. And the illegal immigrant crisis, this exposes a fundamental flaw, and that's an understatement, a fundamental flaw in Democrat thinking and their policies. With Democrats, it's always an emotional bumper sticker soundbite, right? Without regard to the consequences. Remember, sanctuary city, all are welcome. Come on in. Reminds me of Martha's Vineyard, right?
Right.
How quick did they turn that scenario around?
Come on in, now get out.
Now, come in. No, now leave quickly.
We're only kidding.
It's like the Mike Tyson phrase is saying, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. And you know he punches hard.
Yes.
So, yeah. But with Democrats, it's not surprising. It's emotion driven. Everything's emotion with them. No logic, no facts, no let's look at the consequences of this. It's emotion driven policy. And the reality punches them in the face. This is what we're seeing. Well, actually, the punch in the face is to Americans across the country, really. That's the punch in the face. And then when you look at illegal immigration, it has exploded under President Biden, under his watch. Every month under Biden, Border Patrol agents have arrested around 150,000 to 200,000 illegal immigrants per month.
Not 17,000 over months in New York City.
Those numbers are staggering. With a total of about 2.5 million illegal border crossings, much bigger than the 2021 record of 1,662,167 crossings. Well, Republican Governor Greg Abbott reacted to Adams' call for emergency in New York City in a tweet. Here's the quote. Sanctuary cities like New York City experience a fraction of what Texas border communities face every day. We'll continue busing migrants to New York City, DC, and Chicago to relieve our overwhelmed border towns until Biden does his job to secure the border. I love it. And Abbott has bused 12,000 illegal immigrants to New York City, Chicago, and Washington, D.C. Wow.
Yeah, Governor Abbott is doing a great job. Again, we'll get to that a little later in the podcast on the significance of that. But I want to get back to the point you made about the Democrat policies of feel good and don't worry about the consequences. Well, certainly sanctuary cities certainly falls under that bucket, but so does the energy policy. We can run our country just on wind turbines, solar panels, and everybody drives an electric car because it makes them feel good. But in reality, electric cars aren't all that clean. It takes a lot to run or make those batteries. You got to get rid of those batteries. And of course, there's not enough charging stations. What was it? Couple of weeks ago in California, where they told the residents that there was an energy shortage, so don't reduce your energy usage, so don't charge your car.
Right.
I mean, again, it feels good, but it is a bad policy when reality hits. And that's why I love that quote from Mike Tyson. Right?
No, it's
the people in California with their electric cars, if you can't charge it, there's a punch to your face from really idiotic Democrat policies, all based on feel good, not based on reality, not based on the real world.
Right. And with those batteries, don't they bury them to dispose of them? Wow, so how was that good for the environment?
They're going to try to recycle them, but it's all energy intensive.
It's a mess.
At least to say about the mining that goes on in Africa to get cobalt and the elements that you need to make those batteries. But again, feels good. Electric car, battery driven, feels good. No one asked the other questions about the cost, about the real environmental impact. No, those are the details. But it feels good. Just like your point, just like a sanctuary city, it makes us feel good. We're humanitarians. Humanitarians. I mean, obviously, we'd love to take care of the world, but there's the financial reality of a world that runs on limited resources. So again, that was a great point, Deneen. And, Adams has got this big problem. Now he's scrambling. He's absolutely scrambling to deal with the surge of illegal immigrants that are overwhelming the New York City shelter program, overwhelming it. Now, providing shelter to illegal immigrants in New York City is not playing out as well as they planned. And local communities are not happy about this at all.
Nope.
As you mentioned, we attended a community meeting in City Island, which is in the Bronx, and it is in the neighborhood, walking distance to the tent city that Adams was constructing to house 1,000 illegal immigrants in Orchard Beach. It's in a beach parking lot. What happens when summer comes and you want to use the beach parking lot actually for residents who actually want to go to the beach, but that, it just never ends with these people.
No, it doesn't.
At this community meeting, and Deneen and I were in attendance, we got plenty of video. The attendees, the residents of this City Island residents, they blasted New York City Emergency Response Commissioner Zachary Istol. And he was there to explain why the tent city was being constructed in their neighborhood. Actually, the people were passionate. They were very passionate, but they were respectful, and they had a great moderator who, when people started to get a little carried away, he was able to rein the people in. So that was great, and it was good. The man showed up, but at the end of the day, the guy was a fall guy. He was a fall guy for Adams. He didn't have any real answers for the residents of City Island. Again, walking distance from Orchard Beach parking lot, where this huge tent city was being constructed by Mayor Adams.
Yeah. No, it was constructed. Because
we have pictures of that.
Yeah, it was constructed. Yeah. But yeah, let's take a listen to what Iskol had to say.
Look, what I can tell you is this is an unprecedented event. This has never happened before in New York City.
They don't want to hear so.
So what I can tell you is this is an unprecedented event. This has not happened before. New York City always welcomes every year tens of thousands of immigrants. It's what we do here. I mean, it's what we've always done.
I know, but we're talking about 4 million immigrants coming.
Well, we have in New York State right now, we have 110,000 asylum seekers in New York.
Okay.
There's about 75,000 asylum seekers in Texas. I think New York State is already doing all of our work here, and yet we're now being expected to do the job for other people as well. And we are adjusting. We are doing what we do as New Yorkers, and I think the city is doing a great job.
Why weren't we prepared for this if we knew there was 4 million people
I don't know
entering our
that we
country?
knew that there was going to be people getting
Yes, we
busted.
did.
But we were welcome.
Yes, we did.
How did we not know?
Yes, we did.
It's a bummer.
We're going to do what it takes to keep people safe. All people.
Let the commissioner answer, please.
First off, we have extra security at the actual facility. We have the National Guard that is going to be working at the facility. And if we need to increase police presence, we will increase police presence.
You don't have it.
The mayor and the administration is committed to your security. He ran on a campaign for public safety. It is the first thing.
Do you know the crime statistics here?
The commissioner said, we have to take care of these people because it's a humanitarian need, and we have to deal with this guaranteed shelter law that we're dealing with. But the residents of City Island were not happy with that response, and they were outraged because, again, it's walking distance to their community, and they're worried about crime. The crime that could be committed by 1,000 people essentially parachuted into their neighborhood. They recognize that they have no idea who these people are. One attendee mentioned and read a news story where we know Venezuela was emptying their prisons so that these prisoners could come up to the United States and possibly to that area in the Bronx. So safety and security was a primary concern of these residents. And they also were smart enough to realize, because they're local, remember, they know these things because this is in their backyard. They also mentioned that the beach parking lot itself floods when it rains.
Yes.
So it not only is in their backyard, but it's not a great spot to house 1,000 people if it's going to get flooded.
And not only that, just from being out there, there's nothing nearby in terms of transportation. People would have had to walk maybe a couple of miles. And then once you did, you go over this bridge and you're near residential area, you're near different businesses.
Restaurants,
So
right?
so there's like, there were a lot of concerns, and there was one mom, a number of people who stood up and they were concerned about their children walking home from school. So they made some really great points. It's a really nice area. We saw the beach part. We saw where the parking lot was, just driving into the neighborhood, Dr. Tom.
No, it's actually a very nice part of the Bronx. It's actually woodsy. When we drove there, we saw deer running around.
Yeah, we
So
did.
don't think concrete, the part of this part of the Bronx.
Right.
Not at all. It's a park. It's a big park, and it has a lot of environmental aspects to it, positive, and a lot of wildlife. So the people actually expressed concerns about that, about the environmental impact of throwing 1,000 people in an area densely packed, where,
Estimated
as you mentioned, where
1,000.
they don't have the facilities to deal with this.
Right. And who knows what that number could have been. I mean, the number we saw and heard was 1,000. It could have been much, much more.
Yeah, when you see these tents, as we just showed, it's not like you're out backpacking in a Grand Canyon tent.
No, it's like a circus tent. They're huge.
No, these are big structures.
Yeah.
Anyway, while we were there, the passion was flying from these residents, understandably. And one woman blasted the New York City representative, calling him essentially a lackey with no concrete answers. I don't know how many times this individual said, that's above my pay grade. When asked, do we know who these people are? He goes, no, the information comes from Homeland Security, and if they don't know, we don't know. Honest, but not a great answer when you're concerned about crime in a local neighborhood. They have no idea who these people are, but yet they were constructing this huge tent city in these people's neighborhood. So she also questioned the city's priorities, this was great, about sheltering all these illegal immigrants while ignoring the homeless veterans.
I don't understand how I can drive into Manhattan and see so many veterans that fight for this country, pay their dues, and not get the help, the emergency situation help that you offer. Besides what you're doing to Orchard Beach and to Jacoby Hospital with the Rikers Island inmates, you guys do not have a clue how to keep us safe.
That's right.
Yet, we're taxpayers. We're the ones that are trying to keep our property values up. Yes. We're getting bigger bills, less for our money, but we're not getting services because the NYPD don't want to do their jobs anymore because you people let them in and let them out as fast as they come. Now we have our own criminals. You're bringing in other criminals.
Again, have no idea what these individuals' political perspectives, were they Republicans or Democrats, no idea. But they were just dishing out logic of why here, why are you doing this? They didn't have any advanced knowledge at all. And the good thing about this meeting was actually there was a lot of local news coverage. I think there were about 5 or 6 local news cameras there.
And big networks too, a couple
And
of big ones.
Right, as well as it was very well attended. I think it was about 250 people.
Standing
So,
room only.
standing room only. Good thing we
Yeah.
got there early, right? We had
Yes.
no idea, by the way, as usual, when we do these trips, so to speak. We have no idea what we're getting into. We didn't know whether it were going to be 4 people or 400, but we just went in order to provide you with concrete information of what's going on in the ground or on the ground in the Bronx. We also attended a rally at that parking lot, Orchard Beach parking lot. That was actually very well attended. It was cold. There were a few news cameras there as well. And here's a comment made by one of the people who made a speech at the rally.
Keep happening until you stand up. So go home, for any one of you, the next time you show up, grab 10, or it's over, okay? Politicians have given up on this area of the Bronx. They have given up on people like you because they think they can roll right over you. If you do not believe me, look behind you. They have taken your park, okay? And they haven't just taken it. They're talking about bringing in 1,000 illegal immigrants, and that's what they are, and it's not a racist thing to say. Their asylum status is completely unverified. They have not been vetted.
Well, the good news is for the City Island residents, Adams changed his mind. He did an about face. Yeah. So they constructed these huge tents, and the tents have come down. He changed plans, some so-called plans.
Right.
How much did that cost? The supplies, the tents, the manpower, put them up. Nah, you know what? We're going to take them down. I mean, what a waste of money. These people are idiots. The flooding was an issue early on anyway, but not only that, why are you putting these illegal people in a tent in a neighborhood? These people had no idea that this was going to happen. And the original plan, like we said, would house at least 1,000. We have no idea what those numbers would have been, Dr. Tom. But then again, reality set in. Oh, gee, the consequences of this. No one thought of that. We're just going to go full steam ahead, build these tents. We don't care what the locals think. We don't care. We don't care. This is the plan. Flooding in Orchard Beach. It did rain when they had these tents constructed. And I don't know if we have those images, but there was a lot of water in the area. So again, these people are pure idiots. And now the tent city is supposed to be set up at Randall's Island, Dr. Tom. They just went from one part to another. Now it's Randall's Island. I don't know.
Whack-a-mole. It's whack-a-mole.
It is, yeah.
It's Mayor Adams whack-a-mole. Move them here, move them there. They have no idea what they're doing. And this emergency commissioner, response commissioner, didn't anybody look into the area that actually floods when it rains, that this might not be a good idea? Maybe if they had a community meeting, they could have assessed that, because obviously the local people would know. But no, everything had to be a surprise. Because they knew if they said, oh, we're just going to build this huge tent city and house 1,000 people that are here illegally. And it became aware during that meeting that the whole idea was this was just like a processing center. So you move in 1,000 and then they move the 1,000 out. But some of the questions were, well, if these individuals just walk off campus, you're not going to stop them, right? And the commissioner said, no, we can't do that.
Yep.
So they would go there.
He tried to say, well, we have a curfew. He said that. There's also a shortage of police officers.
In that
Someone
area.
brought that up as well. Yeah. So the whole safety thing was huge, and he had zero answers, zero responses. Yeah, we have a curfew. Oh, can they just walk off and they'll never be seen again? And he, as you said, he admitted yes to that. So, idiots. But go ahead, Dr. Tom.
No, it's just it's just exactly what was going on at that meeting. It exposed the plan, and as you just mentioned, it was a bad plan to begin with, because they're already now taking down a huge thing, a huge tent city. They may keep something a little smaller to process people, maybe just to save face, to say that they didn't spend all this money and rip it all down. But it's, as we just mentioned, it's a game of whack-a-mole. Move them here, move them there. And as you mentioned, that the cost is staggering.
Yep. Well, finally, don't be fooled by the criticism from Adams directed at Governor Abbott. The Biden administration has been flying illegal immigrants to small regional airports. And recall the Borellis, we went on our little boondoggle and we followed a couple of buses, one to New Jersey, one to upstate New York.
Sloatsburg, New York.
Sloatsburg, New York, from Westchester County Airport, which is in New York, not too far from where we live, because this has finally put the spotlight on a serious situation that has been ignored for a very long time. Since Biden has been in office, it has been ignored. So in essence, it's made the border crisis a national news story, and it's being covered by the New York Times, CNN, and NBC. In addition, it's also being covered in some local news stories, some local news outlets in New York City, Chicago, and Washington, D.C. And previously, nobody cared. Like we said, nobody cared about the border states and their struggles with the influx of all of these people coming in, crossing their border illegally. And the news coverage, it exposes the economic costs of dealing with the millions of illegal immigrants flooding into the U.S. and exposes the huge problem of Biden's open border policies. Dr. Tom.
Yeah, essentially, it's like that old saying, you know, if a tree falls in the woods, does it really make noise if nobody hears it, right?
Sure.
What was going on in the red states on the border, no one in New York City cared. No one in Washington, D.C. cared. No one in Chicago cared, because it's not in their backyard. So they have major cities didn't care, because it was happening on the southern border. And Mayor Adams can't deal with 17,000, while, you know,
Martha's Vineyard, what, 40
right,
people?
Right. We're
49.
over, I believe over 2 million arrests have happened. And I think at least 1 million of them, or more than 1 million, have been released under catch and release. And that doesn't include the gotaways, right? So a border patrol's over here trying to save people who are drowning in the Rio Grande River. There's other people sneaking in other areas and they have no idea. I think there's an estimate of 900,000 gotaways. So you're talking almost 2 million people right off the top.
Sure.
Think about how many cities or states have less than 2 million. That gives you an idea of the size and the scope. But anyway, that's why, as you mentioned, the strategy by Governor Abbott and other red state governors is absolutely brilliant, because it's driving news coverage and then it's influencing public opinion. And that's what we need to impact change. And that's what we need to expose. So I think it was a great idea. And and he deserves a lot of credit for doing that. And again, Deneen, you mentioned some of the economic costs of the surge of illegal immigrants coming into New York City, and obviously elsewhere throughout the country. But there are other huge problems as well. Don't forget, the open border is responsible for a surge in drugs and a surge of drug deaths and overdoses from fentanyl. I think it's 60 to 70,000 last year from fentanyl overdosing. And illegal immigrants have also committed numerous crimes, and some of them violent crimes, including murder.
Yeah.
So there's another aspect that we all need to contemplate with respect to the total cost of Biden's open border policy. Huge costs.
Yeah.
And in fact, just last week, there was an illegal immigrant who's being accused of stabbing something like 8 people and killed 2 in Las Vegas. And this individual who was arrested and charged with this crime, not convicted yet, but charged with this crime, he had a prior criminal record So the bottom line is Democrats are dangerous, absolutely dangerous to your life and your property. And the open border agenda by Biden and his Democrat colleagues are responsible for this mess. And as you mentioned before, Deneen, sadly, where we, the American people, are getting punched in the face because we have to pay for all of this.
So true. Well, folks, thanks for checking out Reigniting Liberty. And remember, everyone has a role to play. What are you doing for liberty? Until next time.